meet your spouse and know that he was the one?
Well, we always knew the Bartels. My brothers and I were involved in 4-H, and the Bartels were always involved with 4-H. So when there were the county fair, why, they were always there showing their animals, and we were always there showing our animals. But the very first year I was in 4-H, I guess they didn't have girls 4-H at that particular time, I was not showing any plural animals because I started out with 3 sheep and 2 died before the end of the first year in 4-H. So that was the end of my career as a, what shall we say, a shepherdess. But the way I met Don was when I actually started dating. The first year after I graduated from high school, I worked for the farm advisor Frank Schumann in Morrison, Illinois, to earn money for going to the University of Illinois. And I had taken the county exam and had the top score, so I was then I was granted 4 years of tuition fully paid at the University of Illinois, and that was very nice. So I was working at the farm for the farm advisor and making the handsome sum of $90 a month as a secretary. And when it was time for the annual meeting in Sterling in the spring, Mr. Schumann said, "I want you to go along and help with the attendance and registration and so on." So I did, and Don was there with his dad at the annual meeting, and we started talking and started dating after that. My family, especially my grandmother, she was always a close friend of the minister's wife. She didn't like the fact that I was considering marrying a Catholic. In those days, Catholics, I think they created some animosity by advertising very strongly, at least Don and the other Catholics, that his friends were certainly embedded with the idea that Catholicism was the one true church. Of course, I certainly knew plenty of good Protestants along the way, so that was an impediment early on. So anyway, but Don was very handsome, very kind, and I fell in love with him, and so never had any regrets.
How long after you started dating did you get married?
Well, let's see. We were engaged. We weren't engaged when I went to college a year after I graduated from high school. I graduated from high school right at the end of World War II, 1945. I can't remember the exact date of graduation and when the war ended, but I know it was all within a couple days of each other. End of May, 1st of June, whatever. And so when I went to the University of Illinois, we were not engaged then. But during the year that I was there, we became engaged. And so we were engaged, I think, for approximately well, over a year before we were married. We were married August 30th of 1947. So when Don applied to the University of Illinois at Champaign-Urbana, they said no, only prior admissions, but you could get into the Galesburg branch of the University of Illinois. So that's where we went to school, where he started his college years. And Don loves to say that that was a mental institution. Well, that's very true. It had been a mental institution before they turned it into an extension of the University of Illinois. And so we attended there, and then Don was working and going to college, and he was very successful in sales, winning national contests and so on. And so he was offered to the Rexair, that was a vacuum cleaner, branch to be manager in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, and we decided to accept that. So that was the end of University of Illinois after about a year and a half or 2 years there at Galesburg, Illinois. Then we went to Cedar Rapids and lived there where, well, Barb was born in Galesburg, and the other 5 children were all born in Cedar Rapids, Iowa.
So was Barb born in the hospital?
Yes, she was. Don carried me out the door of our home and to the car and to the hospital. In those days, new mothers stayed in the hospital about 5 days instead of, sometimes it's 24 hours these days.
So then you moved to Cedar Rapids, huh?
Yes, right.
And was that a new home that you moved into?
Yes, it was in Parkcrest, and still have a very good friend from those days, Mary Ellen Carlin, and her husband died, Ralph, 4 years ago. Still good friends since, let's see, it'd be 65 years ago.
So didn't they make up a Broadway play about where you used to live?
Broadway play.
42nd
Street? Yeah, that's right. That's true. I don't know, it was about our 42nd Street, although there were lots of stories that could be made up there. I mean, that were true stories. Where I always wanted to be a teacher. In those days, there was no such thing as a high school counselor. So when you went to high school, you just took the courses you wanted to take. I didn't take a foreign language. So when I went to the University of Illinois and was enrolling, and I wanted to enroll in liberal arts and sciences and major in English, and they said, no, you don't have, I think, 2 years of a foreign language. So I either wanted to major in English or mathematics or home economics. And they said, you can enroll in home economics because you don't have to have a language requirement there. So I said, okay. But by the time I graduated some years later at Mount Mercy College in Cedar Rapids, I had double majors in home economics and in English.
And how many kids did you have when you graduated?
Only 6.
And how old was the youngest?
Tom was about 2.5. Let's see, his birthday's in January, so he was about 2.5. And I remember the very first day I went to class at Mount Mercy College in Cedar Rapids. That was when I still needed some classes in my home economics major, and they had just started with a home economics major there, among other things. And so my very first class, I had a call from home that I needed to go home. Carol was riding her tricycle, and she had fallen off, or maybe it was Pat, I think, one of them. Anyway, she skinned her knee and was bleeding and wanted mommy instead of the babysitter. So I thought, oh, I don't know whether this is going to work out or not, but anyway, I did graduate there. And her knee got better. Best. Actually, I liked counseling best. In my, the first year I taught was at middle school in Rockford, Roosevelt Junior High. And Barb and Rick said, you're not going to like that. They were in 8th grade and 7th grade then. I said, well, why not? Your friends are always very nice when they come over. And they said, you aren't going to like middle school. I agreed with them during the school year. So then in the summertime, Jack Swanson, who was a principal at Guilford, said we need a home ec teacher and I would like you to come for an interview. So I was at Guilford High School the next 30 years and I really enjoyed that. But most of all, I enjoyed counseling. And what was the next question?
You also taught psychology, didn't you?
Oh yes, I drew up the curriculum for the Rockford School District.
How long did you teach that?
I taught that for 8 years. I taught home economics 5 years. And when I first went there, and during that time I was also working on my master's at Rockford College, master's in teaching with a psychology core. So when I finished that, I drew up the psychology curriculum for the district and taught that for 8 years, and I had 5 classes a day. I really enjoyed that. And
didn't you also go for your doctorate or take classes towards it?
Well, I took a few classes in, or quite a few actually, summertime at Northern Illinois University in counseling to be eligible as a counselor. And I was interested in a doctorate, but they said, oh, you're too old. I think I was, I don't know, 35 then or something like that. Anyway, I had family responsibilities, so that was all right. I think it was just as well. From what I've seen of school administration, I'm just as glad I missed out on that.
And you were a dietitian for a while also, weren't you?
Well, that was to keep me out of mischief when the kids were little and I was going to Mount Mercy College. You know, it was to help with the income.
And what made you successful at work?
Well, always trying to do my best, having self-confidence, knowing that I could do it just about as well as anybody else, believing that I could.
And what did you believe that helped you become successful and deal with hard times?
After all, I'm a child of the Depression. If that didn't try your mettle and make you, you know, was it Nietzsche who said, that which doesn't kill me makes me stronger? I think that's true.
Well, you mentioned testing your mettle. What times in your life really tested you? And what did you learn about yourself?
Well, you learn what's important. Do you love your family? Do you love your situation? Is it important to you to carry on and do the best you can? And nothing stays constant. Things do change. So money was a big problem with our young family, growing family. And so, you know, sometimes in sales work it's very successful, and other times there's, shall we say, a big drought. So, of course, I was used to living on a small income anyway from my childhood days, so just sort of figure out you love your husband, you love your children, hang in there and do your best.